Please give a warm audience welcome to Rutherford Wilson.
All right. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. Again, my name is Rutherford Wilson, one of the few people with two last names. My roommate in college had two first names, Marcus Gary. Go figure. All right. So enough about my name, but a little bit about me. I've been in this business for a very long time. 30 years was when I first sold my first internet company back in the 90s. And I've been in financial applications, enterprise grade, for that entire period of time. Before joining Machine Metrics, I spent 10 years firefighting at Amazon. Anybody ex-Amazon people here? Okay, you haven't really done anything unless you made an employee cry at Amazon, and actually I was really good at it, even though I feel bad about it now. Uh, but the idea was you're working hard and you're using data all the time to make decisions. And so when I joined Machine Metrics, I took some of those same philosophies about how do you apply all this information. Everyone says we're data first, but they're still making decisions with your gut. And I used to have a big gut, and I'm getting a smaller gut now. The idea here is how can data and AI help us execute better on the shop floor? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But as Anthony said, this is going to be a conversation. I'm not going to show you a bunch of slides. I'm going to show you a bunch of slides. I'm going to talk about product, but I'm going to talk about what is the best way to execute, because there's a lot of little things that need to be managed and controlled at the shop floor. So before I get into all of that, who here, and I'm going to talk to people, I'm going to call you out. So if you're smiling at me, yeah, you're going to get called on. Who here is using AI today in their daily work lives? Show of hands. All right, everyone. All right, gentlemen, glasses over here. How are you using AI today? Email. Okay, what do? It goes through your email? Cleaning up email. All right. Another person over here, Miss Matsu. Oh, hey, I know you.
Create me a PowerPoint slide deck.
Oh, creating an entire deck. All right. These are really cool use cases. Now, the thing I use AI every day in my job, and one of the concepts that I think about is when I use it for my personal work is what information does the AI bot know about me? What context does it have about me? Because I can have it go through my email and clean it up, but I really care about my customers, and so I want the customer information to be front and center. And I even have my AI write the emails for me, but it needs to know my tone. It needs to know how I think about problems, and so I've taught it that. So that's my tribal knowledge. So how do you get that same information that is in your operators' heads? And so what we're going to do today is kind of walk through that conversation about how you can approach that, and how, at least at Machine Metrics, how we think about the problem. Because the reality is we're talking about all these AI and creating a brain that your manufacturing facility can offer. Well, your factory already has a brain. All right. Right now, that brain is locked into the heads of your senior operators that are probably going to retire in the next year. I mean, does that resemble anybody? You got that guy, Jimmy, can touch a machine and go, I think it's going to fail in 2 weeks. Okay, maybe it doesn't do that, but you have those people who understand the sound of the machine and what's going on. That's tribal knowledge. There's also tribal knowledge associated with planning out your schedule. This job can only run on the Doosan because of the length size, and that's not information that's recorded in your BOM. That's not information that's recorded anywhere. It's just they know that it works better on this machine versus that machine. So how do we take that information and get a system to help you to provide that information? So we're going to talk through those kinds of things today. So we're going to talk about how we can spend the next 30 minutes showing you how to get that information out of your operators into a system, and then have that at the moment in time when an operator needs that information. All right. So let's go through this process. I have this big slide here. You guys can read it. And the schedule is the hypothesis. Okay, what do I mean by that? Who's ever put together a production schedule, and then the production schedule, all the jobs are released, and it works exactly perfectly. Nothing goes wrong. You hit every project exactly when you expect it to work, and you can end the day with everything on time. Does everyone have that kind of experience? No? Okay, come on. Not even one person? I mean, do people use advanced planning and scheduling where the plan is perfect, and then what happens is that it hits the shop floor, and then all hell breaks loose. Two of my Akumas are down for maintenance that I didn't plan for. an operator for an important cell that I need to get out the door calls out because they are sick or they got to take care of the kids. Or even worse, you had a plan, something that was planned to be done, but your maintenance person knew about it, but your operations manager didn't know about it, and they weren't talking to each other. And next thing you know, you got to take that machine down and you can't execute. Okay? All these things happen. And so the reality is every plan needs to be done except for, things happen on the shop floor. And so my job with Machine Metrics, what we try to do is we use real-time data, real-time telemetry from the machine, and we combine that with the data from your ERP. So we have your plan over here about what's happening. That's the data in your ERP. We match that up with what's actually happening on the shop floor, and we give you suggestions. And what we're going to be talking about is how to give you prescriptions about how to manage all those issues that happen on the shop floor so you can make the best decision in real time. I mean, it's too late when you're in your next morning day to see, oh, what happened yesterday? How do we mess up? It's better to get that information on that moment and take action right away. And that's where AI can help guide us in that process. Okay, so we call that process the execution gap, and it's costing you money, it's costing you time. So one of the things that you can look at is your capacity planning. How many machines do you need to have available? How do you know when a machine goes out of service or an operator is not available? What's the best combination of things to change that plan to? And how do you use the tools to do that? So the idea is every manufacturer in this room has probably this exact same problem where the ERP plans out your work and the machine's executed somewhere. And then when things go wrong, you have a person who's knowledgeable to reassess and make those changes during the day. How can you use AI to help that process? That's what we're going to be talking about. And that's how we're going to help, at least for Machine Metrics. That's what we think about saving you money. And it ends up not being just one big thing. It's actually a lot of little things. But before I go into all the little things, just a little bit about Machine Metrics. We really operate in 4 quadrants in the space. And we call ourselves a manufacturing operations platform, like a solution, operations solution platform. So we don't call ourselves an MES, but we have capabilities to connect to machines. That's that first bucket over here. So we can connect to your machines and get real-time telemetry off the machines. We also connect to your ERP. We have 15 ERPs we can connect to out of the box. And for the enterprise customers out here who are using SAP or Oracle, we have an SDK that really helps tune to your specific custom integration and get that work done fast. So we connect. We execute. We have out-of-the-box applications that help you, that are kind of MES-like, that helps you job track, helps you do your first article inspection. So it helps you process and get that work done. But we also have the optimized layer, which is, I'm going to talk a little bit about Max AI here, but how you can look at your data and figure out what's the best way to optimize that. And underneath the hood of our every optimization or every platform here is our Max AI. We call it Max because he's cool. And he's an intelligent operator that understands all of your data sets and gives you advice. It was originally trained as a continuous improvement agent to help you understand how to fix some of these problems. And the big thing I'm going to be talking about here today is build. Because no matter what happens, and any software provider like I am that tells you we have out-of-the-box applications that solves everyone here's problem, well, they probably have a bridge to sell you as well. You probably have internet on the water on the internet that they can sell you for a cheap price because they're lying to you. The reality is everyone here is unique, and sometimes you need to build something that solves your exact problem. And that's what I'm going to talk about, how we solve some of these execution gaps. All right, so out of the box, what do we have available to you that you can use out of the box that helps us process? So factory scheduling. Our scheduling system is really more of a dispatch scheduling system. And where the AI comes into play here that helps you out is how many people here know exactly when they start a job, when that job is going to finish? Does anybody have any exact telemetry about when that's going to happen? You guys? Nobody? Okay. Well, what Machine Metrics, what we do in our dispatch schedule is we use the real-time data, the cycle time that we see on the actual machine. So you may have cycle time in the ERP, and maybe it's correct, but in many cases it's not. But we use the actual time of how the machine is running, and we use that as a median time to calculate when that job is going to be done. And so we use that information for the job that's running on the machine, but then I know exactly when the next job that's queued up to run can happen and how much time of setup is required. If I've run that job before, I know the exact cycle time for that job, and I use that time to predict when that job is going to be done, and so forth and so on. So you have a real-time schedule that is up to date and live every cycle. Okay, so that's huge. So to predict when your job's going to happen for the next week, you can see this. And what we tell you is if your jobs are going to be on time or not. So if the color, we'll show you some screenshots, but if the color of the card is red, you're late already. Red is bad. If it's orange, that means we predict that that job is going to be later than your on-time delivery. And our dispatch schedule has a drag and drop capability, so you can reschedule things automatically. So it's not a full-on production scheduling system. You still have your ERP to plan it all out, but our dispatch schedule gives you the information and the knowledge to know how you can best execute. And our AI system gives you that suggestions. So that's one layer. Job tracking, pretty straightforward, allows you to start and stop jobs, but we also use machine data to help indicate when those jobs are actually happening. How many times do you have an operator who's great? A great operator who's got 3 machines that they have to manage. They show up at 6 a.m. and their first thing they do is they get all the machines working. And then afterwards, they record in their ERP what they did. Well, the timestamp associated with when you record that information is like an hour and a half later because they did all their work. So now they're dinged. Now the operator, the poor guy's dinged because now they're saying they did less work to get to the same amount of time. Now, no one really dings them on it, but it's not an accurate reporting. Our system understands the real time the machine started working, and we update that information with the actual machine data as opposed to what time we actually recorded that information. And so all these little fixes help give you accurate data, and that makes a difference because when it comes down to your analytics, your OEE is measured based on how well you operated for that day. And so by using these enhancements through AI to help inform your operators, you can get that information together. Now, where we're talking about AI to really help you understand this, again, Max is our system that we have as our AI platform. We can take it even further. Now, there's a number of things that I'm going to talk through here, and I'm going to pause if you guys have any questions to answer them, but I'm going to walk you through some of the functionality we have. So first of all, we have Max, that is basically your ChatGPT built into Machine Metrics. It knows everything about your production information, how well your machines are running, who's running most efficiently, what your plan is to run for the next week. It has all this information, and the continuous improvement part of our Max system can inform you about what Kaizens you should be running based on the actual production data. It can give you advice about what's the best way to solve a problem where you have a late start that's happening. Your machines, your shift starts at 6 a.m., the machines are not running until like 6:45. All that information is tracked, and so now Max has this data and can say, hey, these are the steps that you need to take to give you advice on how to make those changes. So that's the first layer of our AI platform to help this guided execution. First article inspection. Show of hands, who does first article inspection where the machine is idle until the inspection is done? Okay, well, one of the things with first article inspection is the operator may hands it off to the QA person. The QA person has a queue of work that it needs to do, and the operator's back to working on a bunch of other machines. The QA person may have approved that piece for first article inspection, but now the operator is working on something else, and now that machine is sitting idle for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, the time keeps on going. Our system identifies that and starts to notify people about where these times are so you can maximize and reclaim that time. Shift handover. Oftentimes you have a black book that you write your notes in or you write your sticky notes on the machine. Well, we've digitized it now where all the operators need to do is talk into our system. The AI understands that information, removes all the bad words, and then cleans up the data and then tracks it to the work that they're working on because the AI knows what happened that day. And so if you say that there's a problem with a job, we can connect these pieces together and make a richer note. And now it's preserved, so when the next operator comes in, they see the startup screen about, this is the work that I have to do today, and these are all the things I need to be watching out for. So all the notes get handed over immediately. So these are this is what I call the handful of small improvements that streamline the process. And a sneak peek into something that since this is innovation, that shift handover when you start your day, and we show the operators what's being done. There's another thing I'm going to be talking about called the Tool Intelligence Platform that's going to be released later this year. The goal that we have is for that day is to not just tell the operator, this is what your day looks like, and tell you these are the things to watch out for that happened in the previous shift. We also want to prescribe when they should be changing their tools. Anybody here have a consumable problem? Tool consumable? Okay. Many of our customers will have a tool life monitoring system, which I'll show you how that works. I'll describe it to you. And what we're going to be doing with this information is not just saying, hey, these are tools that need to be changed because they're going to be out of cycle in a certain amount of time, but tell you this is the best way to maximize not only your tool life, but your tool cost, and also reduce your downtime. That's a combination of three things that you want to optimize for, but an operator can't do that math in their head. Our AI system can. And even at the beginning of the shift, tell you this is how you need to leave your shift so you can win your shift and also set it up for success for the next shift. So those are the grab out of functionalities. But even more than that, I want to talk about how you get to the system where you can build a new application. And for that information, there's two components that sets the basis for this. And one of them is we would call the knowledge hub. This is a repository where you can store documents. But it's not just any kind of documents, it's information about that's in your operators' heads. To run this particular part, ABC, you need to run it on the Doosan number 5 because of the length lift. You can have that information, now Max has that information. Or you can have this information about, in order to solve this particular fault that happens on my Akumas, I can need to do this special process. And so instead of having the expert know how this information that may only work first shift, if you're on the third shift and you have the same problem, the Max AI can have this information and provide that to the operator right in their display as soon as the job is running. And so the Knowledge Hub gives you an opportunity to start to take this information that just sits in your culture and actually put it into our system where Max can actually surface and understand that problem and make it presentable at the right time to the operators. Now, this is going to get a little technical. We call it Intelligent MCP. Is anybody here, a gold star, anybody knows what MCP stands for? All right, my man. All right, over here. It stands for Model Context Protocol. And the name doesn't matter. It's just another TLA, 3-letter acronym that everyone likes. All the technology people think they're cool by throwing around. The reality of what it does is it allows one AI system over here to talk to another AI system over here and have that context put into place. So for all the people who raised their hand that they're using ChatGPT or Claude already today, the Intelligent MCP is a secure way where you can get all that context that's in machine metrics about what machines are running, how much downtime you've had, your ERP plan, all that information can now be brought into your ChatGPT experience. So you can ask questions about, in just your normal experience that you're already using today, is what's my schedule for today? What jobs am I supposed to get done? What's at risk for today? How can I optimize it? You can use the Intelligent MCP. You can put all that information into your existing chat experience to help you achieve your jobs. Let me just does anybody have any questions about what that means? All right, so I'll give you an example about how powerful Max is when you line it up. Where's my boss? Where's my boss? Bill. Here, there he is. This is the CEO of the company. So everyone, Bill, say hi. All right. So Bill went to this conference a few months ago, and we mostly deal with discrete manufacturing. But this one conference was called Prove It, and you have to do that. You got to install your software and prove that it works. So it's a gotcha, and people fail. It's actually kind of challenging. People will come and say, oh, my software can do all this good stuff, and then they prove it, it falls down and breaks. But what we did was a little dramatic. We work with discrete manufacturing, and the problem of the data was food and beverage, which is not something that we understand very well. But with the early version of the Intelligence MCP, Bill fed it all the production data, and what Max did, and he asked a simple question, is what's going wrong with this factory? And what Max did is it first of all identified that it was a food and beverage problem. It identified that there's a flow problem associated with moving from, I think it was Coke to Sprite or something, or some different kind of group, and that they're having an operational problem. And it said, this is the application that you need to build in order to visualize it, and these are the solution sets that you can start to operate. So that information was available. I think you did a little back and forth questions, and in about like 2 hours, you had an application. So I just want to tell you that the Intelligent MCP, when you bind all this information, the amount of information you can get is more than just simple, what I need to do today, or how do I clean up my email. You can actually understand real dramatic problems with your production flow that are difficult for you to perceive. And so having this Intelligent MCP is a game changer for the customers that have been using it so far. Okay? So any questions about this before I move on to the next slide? Because I don't think that's where the solution ends. Where the solution ends is something we call Carbide. And this is the innovation. So I'm going to tell you what we're innovating here, and I want to leave some time for some Q&A, so I'll kind of be brief in it. But the idea is, even though Bill was able to build that solution for food and beverage, and we was able to build an application around it to see this information. All of us here have a unique set of problems that we need to solve. And sometimes those problems are temporary that you need to tackle, and sometimes there's something where you need a new system, a new process to execute. And for those customers who have SAP or Oracle, you're familiar with hiring an integrator to install your SAP, and that's going to cost you $2 million, and then another $1 million to build the applications that go on top of it. Well, we believe that there's a world where you can just talk to an agent and it'll build that application for you automatically. And so all the coding gets removed from it. All right, does that sound cool? All right, I want you guys to challenge me on this because this is innovation. So bring it, all right? Bring the heat and challenge me, but I'm gonna show you what we're thinking about. The idea is with Carbide, if I'm gonna build something, I'm gonna describe what I want over here so you can kind of see me talking to it and describing what kind of application I wanna build. And what Carbide is gonna do is, let me give you first the components. Carbide is, first of all, is gonna challenge you. It has an opinion. We've trained it in the Socratic method of developing software to ask you questions about what your outcome that you're trying to achieve, as opposed to what are the features that you've asked for. How many times have you asked for somebody's asked you for a bunch of features to be built, but it's what they want, but it's not what they need? Well, we see that all the time with our customers, and so Carbide has that intelligent layer to ask questions. It also has the ability to have a dynamic data storage, so you can record and store a new application and store the data in our back-end system very flexibly. But it also has a set of UX components that understand manufacturing. You know, a day in a calendar object in any kind of widget starts from midnight to midnight. What time is a manufacturing day? 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. the next morning, okay? So even those simple things about understanding this data, I just describe to it what I want, and I hit go, and I wait a little while, and AI is still a little slow, so it takes a little while, but at the end of it, I get this. So this is an application I built using Carbide. What it's telling me is, I call it the cycle time validator, really bad name, but it's looking at the data in the ERP, it's profiling my production for the last 30, 90, or 180 days, whenever button I click, and it's telling me where the actual cycle time differs from the expected cycle time in the ERP. And so now what I can do is, if I want to update the ERP, it's going to give me information about what was the job that ran, so 6-minute actual cycle time. It's going to baseline the data, so it's not just going to look at that job, it's going to look at all the times I've ran that part before and give me a baseline about what is the average, the median time that I've run that job, which is 7 minutes and 42 seconds. And it's going to give me a recommendation of how to update that. Because I think the expected, the standard in the ERP is 1.2 seconds, which is clearly wrong. And so these are applications where I just describe what needs to happen, and then it builds that application, and it's using all the data that in real time to show you this information. And so these are applications now. If I hit the update ERP button, I can update the ERP, or I can export a CSV file so I can send it to someone to update the ERP. But this is how you can build these applications very quickly, with maybe about 20 minutes of time. And if it's right, great. If it's wrong, guess what you do? You re-describe the application and build it again. Coding is cheap nowadays, and you don't need to pay an SAP integrator $1 million to build something. You can just describe it and get really far yourselves. And so these are some of the innovations that we're working on that really challenge the market in terms of how quickly you can actually get something in production on your shop floor that solves the problem, that helps you execute better. Because at the end of the day, the job is about getting more throughput and getting better utilization out of your machines. Because all that time, that better throughput and that better utilization equals dollars at the end of the day. So let's go to the next slide. So just some examples, some of the applications that our customers have built. If you look at this one over here, tool life monitoring system. We built this for a couple different customers. One customer, Kremen, when we installed the tool life monitoring, they have presets associated with all their tools. We built an application for them that not just understands the presets in their HMI, but understands, since Machine Metrics tracks all this real-time data, we know every tool that's being used and how long every tool is being used for each job, for each cycle, every time, all the time, for every machine. So we looked at that information and we made a prediction model about when that tool is going to hit its preset. So when we installed this with Kremen, they didn't know they had this functionality, and they're using just the job tracking fields. When we showed them this page that shows them the how much time is left for each tool. That became their main screen. And what they did, it took 30, so the tool changes took about 25 minutes. And the machine, you have to imagine what happens. There's a Swiss machines, just to give you an idea. Each operator is managing, I think, 4 machines. And so the machine stops. Now they got to go to the machine. They got to figure out why it stopped. Oh, it's a tool problem, the tool life. Then they got to figure out which tool needs to be changed. Then they got to go to the tool crib, find the right tool, and then come back, change the tool, set the offsets again, and that was 35 minutes. With our system that predicts when it happens, very basic, but using AI to predict this information, they now know when they can stage that tool, and now they can go ahead, when they're operating their different machines, before that T machine is down, they go out and stage the tool, pull it ready, and they can change the tool before it shuts down. Okay, that's how they got, actually that's not exactly all they did to get to 10 minutes. What they realized is, now that I have this data, why don't I create an application that gives me a screen that a pit crew can operate from, and now that pit crew can see the next tool changes for every machine on the shop floor, and they can just hand the tool changes. So bam, change the tool, bam, change the tool, and that's how they got it down to 10 minutes. So these are real AI applications that they built using Carbide to actually solve this problem. 15 more minutes time back, for tool change operations. And tool changes happen every day, every shift. Another customer, they were really focused on on-time delivery and schedule attainment. And so they built an application that helps them modify that. But since I'm running low on time, I'm gonna skip to the next slide. So what's coming next in terms of our innovation, as I gave you a little bit of sneak preview about the tool intelligence platform, the idea is we're gonna use Knowledge Hub to absorb more data about tools, how much each tool costs, what tool fits in each slot for each application. And now with that data, I can now give you a better telemetry about when to change your tools. So if you have a tool change that's happening near the end of the shift and you have a lights out shift afterwards, Machine Metrics knows that, it's better to change all the tools to optimize your production throughout that lights out shift. So those are the things that Tool Intelligence Platform is going to do. And we predict it's going to save you somewhere between 10 to 15% of your total consumable budget. But in addition to that, there's going to be an app library that we're building. And so our belief is we can build more applications, but instead of it being a destination application, we call it like a starter application. And that way you can take an application and we call it remixing, because, waka waka waka, take that application, remix it, and build something new with it. And the thing about AI, at least the generation of AI that we're living within, it's still very young. I call it a toddler. And, toddlers, they don't do what they tell you to do. You say, I want this color to be green and red. That's what a toddler does. But what the toddlers are really good at is copying you. Like they will copy and follow your movements. That's what AI is like too. So these starter applications give you a well-defined application backbone. You copy it, and now the AI knows exactly how to build a good application. And that's really beneficial. And so those are the things that in IMTS we're going to be launching to show you kind of like how this all works. And hopefully you guys like it.